Welcome to Virtuous Society, where we explore Web3 gaming, community building, and much more. I'm your host, Itamar, and today we're joined by Sam Steffanina. Sam hosts two of the largest weekly Web3 gaming spaces, Simplified and Gamified, and he is also the co-founder of WolvesDAO. With a history of growing YouTube channels to millions of subscribers consistently, he brings a fresh perspective to community building and content creation in Web3. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think there is something here for really everyone. I want to thank Sam again for joining us. Enjoy the episode. Sam, thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, I wanted to kick off this conversation by asking you, why have you dedicated your work to the Web3 gaming space?
Ah, man, that's a big question. There's a few different things that go into it for me. One is whenever I found Web3 gaming, I was actually very sick. I had been sick for 3 years, and prior to becoming so sick that I wasn't able to work for that period of time, I'd actually gotten burnt out on what I was doing previously, which was we had the biggest dance channel on YouTube for 5 years. That was like our claim to fame. And whenever I found Web3 gaming, I was just starting to get out of that illness. And I was like, man, I didn't go through all this just to do the same thing, just to keep working in dance, which I was never super passionate about. But I knew I loved media. I loved creating. I loved being a part of, big teams doing interesting things. And then I found Web3 gaming and I was like, oh my God, like all of the stuff that I used to love as a kid, all of the things that I love about media can have this beautiful intersection. And I could actually create like a new career and new life for myself doing this. And luckily, around that same time, I found the WolvesDAO whenever I started really looking into Web3 gaming. And it was called the Cyber Wolves back then. And just that combination of like the right kind of people, the right kind of work, the right kind of content, and obviously the upside of being so financial and being able to make interesting investments and to be able to create content that was different, like Twitter Spaces were very different than what we created on YouTube. And so it kind of scratched the itch of like, well, I want to make money and I want to do cool creative things and I want to be around cool people and I love video games. And I was like, I found, this is my home. This is it.
Nice. I wanted to ask you about like the dancing period of your life. First and foremost, what type of dancing and where, like, how did you get into it? How long have you been like into it? Like, what? Tell me the story.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. My brother was the face of this dance channel. We actually have three of them on YouTube. So two are focused on sort of dance and lifestyle, and then the third one is around dance tutorials, so learning how to dance. And it started whenever he was 18, so that would have made me 12, in rural Virginia. He decided that he really wanted to look cooler whenever he went to dances and like hot girls were
As
there.
we all do.
And so as naturally as we all, at that age are excited about. And so he started trying to find dance classes for, urban contemporary hip hop, that kind of stuff that people would, find interesting at that age. And sure enough, being in rural Virginia, it doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it's like, a 67-year-old white woman trying to convince you that she knows what hip hop is, but like she doesn't really know what hip hop is, and you probably had to drive like an hour and a half just to get that mediocre experience. And so he started buying DVDs like that you get in like mail catalogs, and it would be like,
Damn.
Dancing Jeff is gonna teach you how to hip hop, and it would be like
Yeah.
$100, and it was like 8 hours long, and just like we had mats and stuff in our basement, so he could like learn how to break dance without hurting himself. And whenever YouTube came about, we instantly started consuming a lot of like skits and really entertaining content. But all of a sudden one day, he actually had the idea of like, I'm going to record myself just doing this choreography and put it out on the internet. And then he became a personal trainer and he started teaching fitness classes. And then he was like, wait a second, why don't I combine these things? And to his credit, I don't think he really understood what he was doing at the time, but he was creating the solution for the problem that he always had, which was, I want to learn how to dance. Why can't I do that no matter where I am in the world? And sure enough, eventually he moved to LA before it really was successful at all. And when he was in LA, was really rejected by a lot of the community there because he was like this YouTuber instead of, grinding his way up the industry in the traditional way and all that stuff. And then, after about 3 years of grinding on it, the perspective shift and everybody was like, wait a second, like he's like more famous than all of us because we're like background dancers, but he's, the face of what it is that he does, and it was this really bizarre experience. And so I tagged along in that experience. I did all the post production, I did analytics, lighting, videography, video editing, all that stuff.
Nice.
I got to manage a team. And that was what I was passionate about. That's why I was in the building, because I was never much of a dancer. But I did really love that mission of like, let's democratize and give people, accessibility for this thing that like we believe should just exist, and it should probably exist for free. And we were lucky enough to be early on in that and actually, kind of create the mold for that before TikTok and stuff came along.
Really cool. So you are decentralizing dancing, and now you're decentralizing gaming, or helping
Yeah, exactly.
helping the cause, pretty much. Okay, nice.
I'm trying my best.
Always a decentralizer at heart, pretty much. Nice.
Yeah.
I love it.
What's next?
Let's see what's next, exactly. So you talked about WolvesDAO, and I have a confession to make. You're here for a reason. I got kicked out of WolvesDAO. So you know you're legit. I'll be honest. So I joined WolvesDAO, and I'll give context for anyone that's tuning in who doesn't necessarily have the context. WolvesDAO is a closed gated community. You can't really buy into that community. 300 members, no more than that. So if you're inactive, and I'll confess, I was inactive. We had a lot of stuff. We shipped a lot of stuff during 2024 in Game 7, and all of a sudden, the channel has disappeared. And ever since then, I wanted to negotiate my position. And that's the real reason that you're here, Sam. I want my spot back.
This is a hostage situation, everybody.
Exactly. No, but for real, tell us a little bit more about WolvesDAO, about I wouldn't necessarily say the strategy, because that's like, I don't think that's the correct term. It's the vision behind it.
Yeah.
Because you're operating differently. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, thank you. I think about WolvesDAO, and I'm a season 2 minter of Neo Tokyo, so I didn't get in the first cohort, but I minted the second one. I still hold my season 2 assets. So I don't know. I think that was like 6 months after the first ones came out. So I've been in there a while, like 2021. And I see the WolvesDAO as what Neo Tokyo pitches itself to be. And I hope that Neo Tokyo isn't offended by that, but I've had a lot of Neo Tokyo members that are some of the biggest holders that they have, and they've joined the WolvesDAO, and they've been like, this is what I always hoped Neo Tokyo would become, and it hasn't. And I still love them. I respect what they're doing and the way that they operate. I just truly believe that one of the fundamental flaws in their system is that you can buy your way in. And therefore, we're always going to have a cohort of people that just buy the PFP, post it on Twitter, get a bunch of new followers, post in the Discord one time, and then disappear and don't really contribute anything. I also think it's sort of fundamentally flawed that like Becker and Elio are sort of at the top of Neo Tokyo, receiving a lot of the benefit. And then I see a lot of people contributing by like making magazines and hosting shows and doing video edits and like volunteering their time for free. And I don't really see a lot of that reward funneling back to them. And that sort of bothers me, if I'm being honest. And so with the WolvesDAO, we tried to take a completely different approach. And by all means, we have been tempted plenty of times, been offered, 6 to 7 figures to release NFT collections or do a wolf token or whatever. And to the credit of the leadership there, which is, in part me, but there's 11 admin and 3 people that kind of run like the C-suite decision making. I've been so impressed by their ability to kind of maintain what I can only refer to as like altruism, where we want this to be like a safe space for a certain cohort of Web3 gaming people that we really believe are here for the right reasons. They're building the right kind of technology. They're doing sustainable things, or at least what we hope and think is sustainable. Nobody knows the answer, but we're trying our best. We're doing right by people. We're doing interesting things. We're having really dynamic discussions and not afraid to disagree. Like, we wanted to create that safe space. And I think that can really only exist if you take the financialization out of that part of it, because financialization in Web3 permeates everything else. So we need at least like one spot in the world where hopefully it isn't. And then now we're expanding into live events as well, because I think that's another thing. Like last year we did, or well, I guess it's still this year, we did the Wolves Den at GDC, and it's because GDC is a Web2 gaming conference, and there really isn't like a safe space for Web3 gaming people to come together and to enjoy each other's company and to have hard discussions, to talk about tokens and not have like things thrown at us by normies in Web2. And like, we just want to provide spaces like that people are enthusiastic to be a part of, and hopefully are more sustainable, because we're always building with 5, 10, 20 years in mind, not just for 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, you know?
Interesting. There's something that I want to come back to when you talked about WolvesDAO, and that's not only you're not financializing the entire thing, it's very much a meritocracy. So I think that's where Game 7 and WolvesDAO share some principles in terms
Yeah.
of rewarding merit, like rewarding your contribution to the greater thing, and then be rewarded for your contribution as much as possible. Obviously, financializing things and tokens and NFTs and rewards and airdrops makes it easier to reward people because you have more stuff to give. So I wanted to ask you guys, how do you think about kind of rewarding, quote unquote, your most contributing members? Is that by status, by access, by just the reputation? How do you kind of, what's your angle?
Yeah, it's a combination of those things. That's a fantastic question. The way that we've approached it is in some ways traditional, right? Like a lot of people do, giveaways in the Discord, and depending on your level in the Discord or something, you'll get like a higher multiplier. And we have a system like that as well. We call it the meet system. So whenever you do something, whether it's helping a fellow member figure out a tax problem they're having in crypto, or you get somebody a job, or you write a really thoughtful, thought-provoking post specifically for the Discord, and don't just copy and paste something from Twitter that you wrote and want to get additional love for. If you do something like that, one of the admin will give you meat, and whenever you get a certain threshold of meat, you get multipliers in those giveaways. You get access to certain things, but most importantly, whenever you get 3 meat, you are able to mint our Soulbound token. And our Soulbound token has been minted by, I believe, 178 members last time I checked. So just under 2/3. And what I believe strongly is that 2/3 is like the real diehard cohort of the WolvesDAO. There's about 100 people at any given moment that may or may not kind of fall out and get distracted, and we have total respect for that. There's many. Honestly, the list of people that have been kicked out of the WolvesDAO is arguably more impressive than the list of people still in the WolvesDAO. And I think that, it speaks well on both sides. If you've been invited, you're probably still a pretty impressive person in Web3 gaming. But we're all busy, and we all, we don't have time to contribute to 47 Discord servers and a million different Twitter accounts and reply to everything. It's just not possible. So we believe that one of the coolest things about this Soulbound token initiative that we kicked off about 2 years ago now is, if you're a person that runs a project, whether it's a token, a game, a NFT, whatever, one of the ways that you can get your asset into the hands of the best people in Web3 gaming, or who we believe are the best people in Web3 gaming, is to airdrop it directly to that Soulbound token. And that's been something that we've actually gotten a lot of interest in. I actually had another person DM me this morning being like, hey, can we just give you some of this stuff for free? Like, so we can have it be with WolvesDAO people. And that was the vision that I had 2 years ago whenever we started this. I was like, trust me, guys, at some point, people are going to be like, the Wolves are cool. We want to like get more Wolves involved. And then we can just hand them a contract address and be like, here's all the people. It's that simple. We don't need to collect wallets and do an alpha bot or whatever. It's just, here's the list. And luckily that's taken off to the point where, to answer your question directly, like that has become a reward for people. So the soulbound token, which you can never sell and is not financialized, now has kind of become financialized. Like
Yeah,
it
by
technically
external
sort of,
forces, pretty much. Yeah, which is
right. It has a
it's a pretty cool like way to go. I like it. It's very
awesome.
creative.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
a speculative node almost at this
yeah,
point.
nice. When you mentioned the meat thing, the only thing that I managed to think of for like 10 seconds was WolvesDAO featuring or like a joint campaign with Paul Saladino. Do you know the
I don't think
carnivore only eat meat and fruit
so.
guy? I love him, like I
Amazing,
love the
dude.
guy, and I think
Yeah.
I just had a vision of him like joining the WolvesDAO. I don't know, it was great. Um,
Oh,
so, how do you ensure that the wolves are keeping to the values that the core team believes in? How do you ensure that people continue to contribute and actually provide value to other community members?
yeah, so that's a pretty loaded question. I think that's something that we've been held to a high standard on, and I think we should be, and I think everybody in Web3 should be held to a high standard of what their members kind of do in the ecosystem. The short answer is you can't get all of it. Like we've had to review and remove some people based on their interactions outside of the Wolves DAO. And whenever it isn't up to our standard of how people should be behaving in the space, unfortunately, we do take that into consideration. But
Mhm.
we can't keep tabs on 300 people all the time, nor do we want to, right? There has to be some level of trust of like, based on the interactions I have, you seem like a person that is operating, up to standard. With that being said, though, the most effective thing that we do in this circumstance is called the purge, which you were a victim of. I'm sorry about that, but every month we review a few different metrics, and based on that, make a decision about whether somebody is a contributing member or not. During times that are super bullish and everybody's really excited about Web3 gaming, our application has literally broken because we've gotten so many people clicking on it, and so with that in mind, during that time, we're a little bit stricter on the purges. We are a little bit more driven to make sure that like the people in there are the highest quality, but also people's attention is spread the thinnest during those bull market times. So it's a really difficult thing on members sometimes. But that purge has given us the opportunity to very simply give people reasons why, look, it's not working out, and it's not necessarily even because of you. It's just a matter of, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and at
It's
this
not
time
you, it's
you're
me.
not part of that.
It's not you,
Exactly.
it's me.
Yeah, like this is just how the Wolves DAO works. And there's been so many times that we've talked about like, oh, maybe we should expand it, or we have different roles with different standards, and sometimes we kind of play with those ideas. But at the end of the day, I think being steadfast, even when it doesn't feel great, because we're kicking out people that
Yeah.
we do genuinely enjoy, it allows us so much to keep everybody at that standard. Because as soon as we sort of nudge it,
Yeah.
it's a slow drip down into the right.
It's
And
easier, yeah. It's easier to
yeah,
keep things like strict and keep them black and white. I think that's also
yeah,
like, I think there's value in clarity. I mean, like,
yeah,
hey, if you're not active, then you're gone. Not necessarily, hey, here's a warning. You're just like, you're off.
yeah.
I think that's better in a lot of ways. Uh, and the concept of the purge, which I have been a victim of, as you mentioned, I actually copied, and I'm purging like I think like yesterday we had a purge in the Game 7 Discord, more like
Oh,
bots
nice.
and just people like impersonating and whatever.
Yeah.
There's like a thing like we're throwing gifs of purges and stuff like it's a thing also. So you turned me into the villain, and you can take credit for that now.
Amazing, dude. I love that. Yeah, I think it's a painful concept at times, but it's really, really, really valuable, especially in a space where, again, you could just buy your way into most things. And
Yeah.
instead, it's just a very different way of operating. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, Wolves in Game 7 actually have a lot of alignment on some of these concepts.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of merit-based communities, for sure,
Yeah.
we're offering a different. We have different offers, I would say, at the core of. But the fundamentals of how we think about things are very much are kind of the same, almost identical. So in terms of, let's say, tactics to keep um, people not only engaged, but to actually encourage them to not necessarily even write your best thoughts into Twitter and use it as content. Like, use it here, talk about it here, do it here. How how have you approached it? Like, obviously, from a content creator perspective, you have a very large following. Is there things that you're keeping like just for the wolves? Are you instructing the community to kind of do the same somewhat, or how are you approaching it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the tenets that we have in the Wolves DAO is like what happens in the Wolves DAO stays in the Wolves DAO. And
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of groups have this same thing, right? If you're in a shitcoin group and you leak like which one, the contract address ahead of
Yeah,
time or something, like you're probably not going to make it very long in that
yeah.
group. Um, but in our circumstance, the way that I really want people to approach content in the Wolves DAO is talk about things here that you can't talk about publicly
Mm-hmm.
because maybe you don't know the answer yet. Maybe you don't know if that thought is a great idea or a stupid idea. Maybe you don't know how it's going to be received by a wider audience. And this could be about anything from what the next airdrop for your game is going to look like to I'm a content creator and I don't know if this thread is accurate. Can anybody fact check it? Or I think that everybody should be releasing their tokenomics that are completely unlocked day one. And that's a crazy thing I'm not going to say on Twitter until like peers of mine tell me like, yeah, I agree. There's so many tweets that you probably see that I bet were refined in the Wolves DAO first
Mm-hmm.
and before they hit Twitter, just to make sure that they weren't being like completely off
Yeah.
the rocker. And that creates really, really interesting discussions. I probably disagree with people in the Wolves DAO more often than I'm like, oh, great job, great thought. And that's part of the culture that I got to give Peyton a huge shout out. Peyton, the original founder of the Wolves DAO, because he really believes in this idea of like iron sharpens iron. He comes from the
Mm-hmm.
Navy and doesn't fear disagreeing. And I think that that's created a very unique space. In addition to the other things that we talked about, I think that in particular is something that like not enough people in Web3 do at all. Like it's just
Yeah.
echo chambers and like there's only one way and it's going to the moon and that's
I,
it. And it's just
I
like,
think we're seeing
guys,
more. I think we're seeing more diverse. As we grow, we're seeing some
yeah,
some
for
more
sure.
diverse opinions, but
They're catching up.
for sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
You love to see it.
Yeah. In terms of the, like, give me a sneak peek into WolvesDAO. So say I now joined as either an aspiring content creator, or maybe I'm a community manager for some game that is about to release a token, and I want to kind of express and share my either concerns or strategies or opinions. How does that experience would look like for me? Say I managed to get in.
Yeah. So day one, whenever you get in, we ask that you give us a thoughtful introduction of yourself, and we found that that's been really important to kind of level set the barometer of quality. Because what you'll
Mm-hmm.
do is you'll go to this introduce yourself channel, and you'll instantly see the quality of everybody that came before you
Mm-hmm.
and how much thought they put into introducing themselves as well. It's usually about a page long, like a Discord screen of resume and experience and hobbies and interests and what they like about Web3 gaming, what chain they're most bullish on, like whatever it may be. And that always gets really exciting. We actually just had somebody introduce themselves. Shout out to Ashney. She got in about a month ago, and she was like, yeah, and then I was featured in like Ninja's book, and then I started doing something with like Ludwig, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, it's just crazy to me. We had Kevin Lambert's like, oh yeah, and then I was working on Dungeon Siege 2, and then my company got bought by Microsoft, and I'm just like, holy shit, I can't believe, I run an organization where these kinds of people are here, and I hope that other people have that same experience of like, wow, like this is truly a jury or whatever of my peers. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is people that I can trust have thoughtful opinions that aren't just shit posting on Twitter. And whenever you decide to share some like true opinions, there's a multitude of ways to do it. Obviously, we have channels that are related to coins and NFTs and stuff, but we also just have a channel that's called Hot Takes. And it's like a space for people to just give their spicy opinions. And we know that that's what it's there for. And, again, we have that level of trust that like nobody's going to be like, that's a dumb opinion, stupid, like get out of here. It's like, here's a reason why I disagree with it, or here's why, based on my personal experience, it's completely accurate. Then, of course, there's just general chat where all day there's interesting conversations happening about, Web3 gaming. It's a lot of the inspiration for my shows on a weekly basis is based on the conversations that people are engaging with the most. I know, okay, this is pretty interesting to people. And, it's pretty simple. And then, of course, there's just voice chat where constantly people are jumping in and having thought-provoking conversations about what's going on in their daily lives. A lot of times, like I said, people that run projects of their own will just be like, hey guys, here's some alpha, in a week we're planning on announcing this, but can I get some feedback about how it'll be received? And again, that's where the trust in our members to like make sure that they're keeping those things to themselves, and what happens in the WolvesDAO stays in the WolvesDAO is really important, because it allows us to do cooler and cooler things the more that trust is observed and respected. And this is the last thing I'll say. I know I'm ranting, but at GDC we got to do. Thanks, man. At GDC, we got to do what I think was the coolest thing I've ever maybe done in my whole life, which was we had Alpha Night, and I asked 30 founders to come give information about their product that they wouldn't be able to give online. And so, again, mutual trust. I asked everybody in the house. I said, put your cameras away, put your phones away. This is just for us. It stays here. It doesn't go anywhere else. We had 30 founders come. I introduced every single one of them. For 5 to 10 minutes, they would talk about their products. They told us about token launches or new game modes or anything else in between. And it was just this beautiful, like, so often, there's just the stuff that businesses do and then the stuff that consumers do. And this was a beautiful blending of both of those sides coming together and just having mutual respect and trust. And it was just one of the coolest nights of my life. So I want to be able to do more things like that, and building trust is so important with that.
I love it. And I'm picking up, like, from everything that we talked about thus far, I'm picking up a lot of seeking for communities that are built by trust, seeking for places where people could feel safe to say whatever it is that they think, to better themselves, to be honest. Where is this passion of yours coming from?
Oh, dude, that's a good question. I don't know. I was weirdly like a homeschooled kid who lived in the middle of Virginia, like I mentioned, with my brother. And so I basically had no friends, but I had a bunch of friends on like World of Warcraft. And I just feel like every day now when I go to work, I get to hang out with like all of my World of Warcraft friends, like digitally. And then one of the great regrets is I had one really, really good friend. He was my best friend for 6 years, from 12 to 18. His name in World of Warcraft, if anybody knows this dude, his name was Scyr. Scyr was how it was spelled. And I swear, this dude, he was like the big brother that I always wanted. Like, me and my big brother didn't have the best relationship growing up, but this guy, like, he was just there for me every day. Every single day we talked. He was a few years older than me. He like talked to me about girls and jobs and how to, well, should I go to college? Like all that, all those informative experiences. And I can't find him anymore, dude. I just, no matter what I do, I can't get into contact with this dude.
Plot twist, it's me.
It drives me. Yeah. I'm so sorry we kicked you out of the Wolves. It drives me crazy. But now I have that inverse experience where I have those same feelings now about the people I meet in Web3. Peyton being a great example of that. He's become one of my absolute best friends. And I know who he is in real life. And I get to go see him at conferences. And I get to create content with him. And we get to make money together. And we get to do cool stuff. And it's just like, I can't imagine like a cooler thing to be able to do. And so I think to build that community stronger and with more individuals and doing cooler things is mind-blowing to me, because it's already the coolest thing I could be doing. And so I'm constantly driven to just be like, how do we level up? Oh, like more live events, more cool people, different games, like let's get more partners, let's go like further across the world, which we're about to do, going to Manila to have another sort of a Wolves Den. We're calling it the Creator Den, but all that stuff is just like, I don't know, what else could I be doing that's as cool as this?
Yeah, it's just fun, and it's worth doing, and it's funny
Exactly.
because
It's worth doing.
there's a lot of there's a lot of let's say there's a lot of different definitions to what community means, especially for like from the business aspect of
Yeah.
what does it mean in Web3, what does it mean for games. Like it's all just like technical whatever businessy terms. And the one definition that I very much like is community is the solution for loneliness. That's it. Like super simple,
The
very
solution
easy
for
to
what? I'm
understand.
sorry.
For loneliness.
Loneliness. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So a lot of the things that you're saying now, and I think that's also like I think it plays into the decision to cap WolvesDAO in like 300 members and doing those IRL events that obviously have less people than your usual 100K Discord. They're more human. They're more connecting. Because if you only have 300 people in the DAO, then that's an opportunity for people to actually get to know each other. And if you're also fostering like pretty much a space for them to share what they really think and build trust with the people that they're talking to, then those connections become deeper and they actually mean something else. And I'm saying that pretty much throughout everything that you're doing, maybe besides the dancing period, but I don't know, maybe that was weaved into that as well. It's a very much like a common thing, which I love because I'm very much the same. So
Yeah.
that's fun for me.
To quickly double down on your analogy or to what you're referencing, I would add an analogy, which is I think it's easier to be lonely in New York City than it is to be lonely in a town of like 10,000
For sure.
people, you know?
100%. 100%. Like that's, and it's easier to be lonely in a 100,000 100,000 members
Discord,
Discord
yeah.
than a
Yeah,
300 one, for sure.
100%.
That's what we're pretty much trying to break down the Discord to like sub Discords in a way, like sub
Oh,
channels,
nice.
like making sure that people. This is just like a skill tree conversation. Everything that we're doing now in order to empower people to do what they actually love with people that share the same mindset. But that's beyond this conversation. Something else that I wanted to touch on. So, for those who have either formed or managing communities in Web3, Web2, whatever, how would you suggest kind of balancing let's say the need for exclusivity for like I want to be here with also being inclusive in terms of I want this thing to grow? How do you strike the balance, and do you even feel that you are striking the balance, or maybe there's something you're also trying to figure out? That's fine as well.
Yeah, striking the balance, I would say, is incredibly difficult. Let me describe what it would look like in a perfect world, and then I'll tell you where we're falling short as far as how we approach it. I think in a perfect world, it would be a meritocracy, not only from the inside of how you retain your membership, but also from the outside, how you get entry into the group. And I think to an extent we have that with the application, but because of certain circumstances, we've kind of had to limit it. And that makes me feel bad because I want everybody that comes to Web3 gaming to look at the WolvesDAO and be like, damn, like that's cool. I want to join it. And also I know how to eventually be able to join it.
Yeah.
And I think there's still a lot of obfuscation and sort of mystery around it in its current iteration. I also think that there should be a reason why everybody is there that is meaningful for both parties. And by that, what I mean is it should be meaningful to the DAO to have this new member, and it should be meaningful to the person, the member, to be a part of that DAO that is value based but not tied to financial. That's a perfect world in my mind, which is everything comes back to value always. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to date a girl, if you're trying to get more Twitter followers, or if you're trying to help a friend. It all comes back to what value can I provide to this person, this entity, this interviewer, this person, whatever. And in my mind, whenever it's just the next NFT, that's always going to be incredibly unsustainable on a long enough time horizon. Maybe you can do what Mon Protocol did and have 50 different coins, but like still it's kind of unsustainable in the long run, you know? And so I think it's really, really important for people to feel like they are constantly being given value, and also that they are giving value back to the entity. And I think also we've fallen short on always giving people a clear pathway on how to contribute to the DAO that is maybe not just sending messages. Like, part of the reason that I was successful whenever I joined what was then the Cyber Wolves was I realized right away, all of these guys are way smarter than me. What am I doing here? That was my first reaction. And I saw the conversations that they were having, and I was like, man, if I try to contribute to this, I'm going to expose myself as like not smart enough to be a part of this conversation. And I don't just want to kind of say like something ambiguous that they might
Yeah.
think I kind of was smart and trick them into thinking, you know? And so luckily I was able to go into voice chat. I met Peyton. I met this guy, Taylor, who is actually long gone now, but he had a very meaningful impact on me at the time. And through our discussion, they realized that I was talented whenever it came to social media and content production. And because of that conversation, we were able to realize like, hey, maybe there's something here where like Sam helps us out with Twitter. Maybe there's something here where, you know, there are other shows. Maybe there's content that we could make based on the conversations we're having in the Discord. And it didn't happen overnight. This is like 6 months of, you know, kind of checking in and seeing what's interesting to people. But it gave me some way to contribute, some way to have a conversation that I was an expert in. And that led to now live events and shows and a larger Twitter presence. We've, I don't know, 17x'd or something the Twitter since I found the Cyber Wolves. We changed the name from the Cyber Wolves to the WolvesDAO. We did the Soulbound Token Initiative. We did GDC. And like all of that was, you know, some of it might have happened without me, but all of it was driven by the growth on socials and the Twitter following and stuff. And it keeps me up at night sometimes thinking about how many people, you know, left the DAO because they had that same experience of like, I don't know, I don't want to have a conversation here. But I can make a more meaningful impact. And what cool things could we have done that we missed out on because we weren't more, I don't know, flexible or dynamic in the way that we think about contribution. And so we try really hard, but I just don't know if there's a silver bullet, or if there is one, I haven't found it yet. And so both in getting access to the DAO and in sort of measuring meaningful contribution and seeing people's skills and getting the best out of them, I think are two areas that I really hope we do better at. And we're constantly trying, at least, you know?
Yeah. I think for like there isn't a silver bullet. I think it's 100 golden BBs really that gets you to hopefully where we want to get to as a space, as an overall community. When you're speaking to your experience about wanting to contribute but not necessarily having the tools to contribute to that specific thing that is currently being discussed, and that specific thing that people are contributing to at the moment, and then taking the marketing / content creation angle and contributing there because that's where your expertise lies. Where do you see more verticals that are similar to that beyond, say, content creation or marketing, that also is not necessarily for every community, but fairly common in communities? Is there anything that you can think of, or anything that you guys are currently utilizing and giving people the opportunity to contribute to in WolvesDAO?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, a couple of the things that come to mind are education, and education is a bajillion different things at once. Like I even saw a great example, Storming, who's an up and coming LATAM content creator who has a community. He's teaching his community English. He's paying an English tutor to come in. Yeah, I think once a week, or maybe even it was either 4 times a month or 4 times a week, maybe even, where he's doing like hour-long English lessons. And I was like, that is fucking incredible, dude. That's so cool. And, you know, it could, so for that reason, it could apply to language. It could apply to tokenomics or NFTs, or how to get better at video games, or how to travel safely, or how to do a live event, how to host a Twitter space, how to make better content. Like, there's so many things. And again, if you're cool enough to get into the WolvesDAO, I bet you have at least one thing that you're probably considered an expert on, or at least more knowledgeable than the average person. And so I think part of it is, again, giving people a pathway of like understanding that that's important to us, that's valued, and helping them have the space to actually show that off and make cool things based on that expertise. Another thing that comes to mind, and this is a little bit more nuanced, is like merchandising and locality, like the physicality that we so often miss in Web3. But like whenever we're throwing these live events, it's super important to us to have somebody in Manila, in Singapore, in San Francisco, in LA, in wherever else, because it gives us a place to ship things to. It gives us a person who understands the safe areas versus the dangerous areas, what app to put on your phone, like all the stuff. And one thing that I'm also super interested in, you wouldn't know it by the way that I dress, but I love fashion and I love streetwear, and I love the idea of like building really interesting brands that have a lot of depth to them. And so I really want to meet people that are like, have connections to manufacturing, that do design work, that are thinking about, you know, how to build a brand, again, not just for 1 year in an NFT launch, but for like 20 years. Like I hope 20 years from now, we have like the craziest gamified brand of all time, and that the WolvesDAO is like, I don't know, has like its very own line of fucking socks and weird hats or something like that, or like the wolf masks. It would just be so cool to see these things evolve, you know?
I think fur coats is the
fur
like,
coats. Thank
couture.
you. See, we got to get you back in the WolvesDAO, dude. This ideas like
so
this.
Many ideas. Get me in. Bring me back.
Amazing, dude. Amazing. And so it's like, it's stuff like that where, you know, there's probably 15 more categories that we could go into that people could meaningfully contribute. And it's just about finding a balance. Like I was talking about the value. It's like you find value in sharing this expertise. People generally feel good about their opportunity to do that and to educate other people. But then there also has to be a cohort in that 300 of people that is excited to learn that skill, right? Most of the WolvesDAO already speaks English. So English classes, probably not a good fit for us. But for storming, absolutely fucking incredible. And like one of the coolest things I've seen in Web3 all year. And so with that being said, it's just about finding that match and having conversations and giving people opportunity to come to the plate with something to offer, you know?
Love it. Absolutely love it. So we're coming to the end of our time. So I'll wrap it up with one final question. What would be your advice for anyone that's building or contributing to a community in Web3 gaming? Your one sole advice: follow this, and you'll probably be better off than you were before.
I would say find a community where your energy is matched. If you can find a community where they see in you what you see in them, that's whenever like magic happens. I don't always feel that way whenever I join new communities. I'm like, okay, I'm just posting to get to level 5 so that I can put a GIF in an emoji or something. And it just like, it doesn't really feel like there's substance and meaning behind what I'm doing. And the people aren't really engaging with what I'm saying. They're just kind of GMing back, even though I asked a question and stuff. And those kinds of communities, yes, sometimes you can break through and find the mod or the person, you know, maybe they weren't awake the first time you jumped in. Like sometimes you got to give things time to really marinate and to find your people, even in those cohorts. But you'll know sooner rather than later. And sometimes it means starting with a smaller community, right? One where they appreciate your membership and your contributions a lot more. And I'm really glad to hear that you guys are doing this sort of like sub Discord thing to break it into smaller cohorts and give people.
Like
I'm sorry.
We're doing skill trees at the moment. Like we pre-launched it, but it's something that it's very much the plan for 2025. The gist of it is, if you're a content creator, start engaging in the content creator skill tree. Get educated if you need to. Get educated, take on bounties at a specific level, and then start contributing to the DAO and get rewards for that. But we're trying to clarify the process as much as possible. We're doing it for currently content creators, user success, and community. So we have 3 avenues which you can contribute to. It's very much like the alpha version of, but we have like so much more in line for 2025, and then it's going to be hosted on the Game 7 portal. A lot of plans, but currently it's like the bootleg version, the alpha version, where we have the best people and the most active people in the community contributing, getting involved, and already kind of both getting educated from it, but also getting reward and the experience they need for that. But for us, we don't want a moderator to stop at like a moderator position. Like if you're moderating the chat, we want, or the channel, we want that hopefully in like a year time, you would be able to take on like a community steward, which is our version of community manager, real community manager, not the Discord one, like actual
Yeah.
community manager, and take on like a full-time gig. Like go get, like we want you to evolve. And we have people that we identified in the community that are very much like raw potential that we want to empower. Very difficult to do, but we're working to do it, hopefully, as much as we can.
Amazing. Dude, I think that's so cool. And the fact that it's all like gamified with like calling it a skill tree and having it like paints a picture instantly. I love how quickly you were able to explain sort of the entire system. I felt like in 20 words, I was like, oh, I see it now. And I've been exposed to some of the concepts, the digital nation stuff and whatnot that Game 7 is doing. And that reminds me of another tip I would kind of latch on to what I said previously is like find communities that are also building cool stuff for decades, for at least years, if not decades. Like Game 7, I when I hear about what you guys are doing, I'm like, this is 50 years of cool shit to do. You know, like this is like world domination. You know,
it felt like 50 years of work in 2024 as well. This year has been crazy, like crazy. Hopefully,
and to look back on all the things that you guys have already achieved and everything else that you want to achieve, I'm sure is incredibly gratifying, not just for you, but also for the community members that have contributed in meaningful ways.
For sure.
And that's what you should look at, not just, oh, my NFT 3x'd, like I was a good community person by going on Twitter and posting a lot about it. Like that's hollow and it's short term and it's cool when it happens, but it's not a career. It
won't hold up.
Meaningful.
Also. It won't hold up. Also, that's
it won't.
It's a trade. It's not an investment. That's how I'm
said.
Kind of saying it. I love it. I love everything that we talked about. Unfortunately, we're on time and I have so many more things to ask. So that means that we would have to have you back again. Unfortunately for you. But yeah, I appreciate you very much. Where can our audience find you? All the links will be in the description, but still.
Yeah, thanks. Twitter is really where I do most of my tweeting. Obviously, I think Twitter is a great place to follow me. Gamified, Simplified, Wednesday and Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Every single week, we do Twitter Spaces that are focused on video games in Web3 and not just how it relates to tokens and NFTs. So if you enjoy that kind of stuff, I think you'd really enjoy the show. We bring together some of the greatest experts in all of gaming, period. Somehow they're in Web3 and somehow they're willing to talk to me every week. So that's really exciting. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm trying to build another channel where I distribute unique value. Specifically, we take a lot of like stuff from the spaces that we learn and we put it on LinkedIn to try and educate that audience, because I feel like LinkedIn, Web3 gaming have kind of a tumultuous relationship. So I'm trying to bridge the gap a little bit there.
For sure.
And then, of course, the WolvesDAO, follow the WolvesDAO. Find us at a live event. I promise we will take care of you. You'll have an absolute blast and you'll meet some of the coolest people you've ever met in the entire space if you come by.
Amazing. And I believe you. And hopefully I can attend one soon.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So thank you very much, Sam. As always, thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. Please make sure to follow, like, reshare, repost. We're posting this episode to so many different social media and nowadays. So just whatever the social media that you're currently interacting with, do something. Please do something.
If you don't mind me plugging also, Gamified and Simplified, I forgot. As of last week, we are on like every podcast platform now. Nice. So if you don't want to show up to the live event, just whatever thing it is, just search Gamified and you'll see episodes of both on there. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Sam. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, brother.